looks nice.
All right.
Camera's go.
Take one.
It's the only take we get. Oh, I hope you've memorized your lines.
I have lines?
Yeah. All right. So let's see how to begin this. So, Mike Thornton, how long have you been our news director at KFUG now? I forget.
Since last September.
Was that just it? Just one, like a year, basically?
Yeah, basically a year, yeah.
Wow. Well, first off, I want to start with thank you for that. Thank you for what you've brought to the news, to KFUG. We always wanted to do the news, and it was always something happened around the edges, and you came in right to the heart of it and became our news director, and now people are listening every day to our news, and that is all your work. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. The opportunity to do it is very cool.
So, and this wasn't your first rodeo, broadcast news-wise, was it?
No, actually it wasn't. I was the news director at KVMR, a community radio station in Nevada City for, I don't know, 8, 9 years or so, maybe 10. Mm-hmm. And we did a nightly newscast there as well. And it was really very cool. It was something I kind of worked my way into, lucked my way into, stumbled my way into, and really, really enjoyed it. Really fulfilled by doing it. And
you guys got like local awards. You got awards for being the best in the market, correct?
Well, we actually did, which is really kind of cool. What we got was the Sacramento News and Review, which is one of those kind of like SF Weekly kind of newspapers.
Sure.
And we were, I think it was like 2004, 2005, we were awarded Best Radio News Program. And that was in Sacramento. And at that time, I don't think we had a translator in Sacramento.
Wow.
They were just getting our signal coming down out of the foothills from Nevada City.
Right.
So yeah, it was very cool. And I mean, I had people who were helping. It wasn't like I was doing it all myself. Sure. But yeah, we were very proud of that.
Yeah, and that's got to be what, third largest market in the state?
I don't know. I guess maybe.
Right?
I hadn't never thought of it really that way. But yeah, I guess that's true. I mean, truthfully, the thing that was in some ways my most fun achievement there was we had a running thing going with the local newspaper. In fact, at one point, the publisher told the reporters, don't talk to us because we were the competition, right?
Right.
And so then we had this thing where someone we knew, the newspaper did a big splash about some personal failings of theirs. And it was a cheap shot. Mm-hmm. And so then somebody delivered us inside information about one of the highly placed employees at the newspaper, and we didn't go with it because it was beneath us, basically, is what we decided. And then the editor started arguing and fighting with me in public, and called me a political shock jock, right? And so then I did this mix, kind of a multi-track sort of thing with beats and all of that. And it was the political shock jock mix, and I sent it to the publisher. And the publisher got back to me, and he said, Mike, usually I say to people, don't pick fights with folks who buy ink by the barrel. Mm-hmm. Because I'm going to add, don't pick fights with a political shock jock that has a mic. So I thought that was pretty fun. But we got to do a lot of cool things, and the station was very supportive of doing a news program and public affairs and all of that. So it was really great.
What's intriguing about when you tell these stories, the KVMR stories about the places they sent you around the world?
Yes.
This is a community radio station. Where did you go in your community radio news role?
Well, I think it's important to say that at that time, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting was giving out grants to rural stations and community stations and all of that. And so what happened was these monies, which were substantial, was used for either buying or creating programming for the national market. Most radio stations use theirs for buying programming from the national market. We used ours to create programming for the national market. And so as a result of that, I wound up going, well, Central America I did before that. I went to Guatemala and El Salvador to do some reporting on the U.S. Army School of the Americas and what had been going on there. Then I went covered three presidential conventions at various places across the country, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, and New York.
Wow.
And then 2 World Trade Organization meetings, one in Seattle, which was the one in 1999, and then one in Cancun, Mexico. And then I also went to the Middle East a couple of times and did some other things. I was going around to various prisons, both high security federal prisons and death row in Waynesburg, Pennsylvania, interviewing revolutionaries who are being held even to this day as political prisoners, and just doing a whole lot of work like that. And I couldn't have done that without that kind of support. But I would have never had an opportunity to do those things without, having that position and that kind of support.
Yeah, that's an amazing opportunity.
It was. I'm eternally grateful for it.
So you're like from the, for KVMR Community Radio, from the West Bank.
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
We actually did a live remote from one of the Palestinian refugee camps, literally live on the air. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then I was in the Shatila camp in Beirut, which is really pretty much the only time I've really ever been kind of scared on assignment, because we were under the protection of this woman who was taking us around the camp. Calling it a camp is a real misnomer, right? Because they've been there for 50 years.
Like a shanty town?
Well, yeah, it's like a built-up super barrio. It's kind of like I used to say, like if you imagine sort of the worst American ghetto and then magnified that by 100, you'd be in the ballpark.
Right.
And so, it was really clear. I mean, there are people really, really angry there for a lot of reasons, but was able to go there and tell that story, as well as the first music and censorship conference. I believe it was the first in the Middle East that was held in Beirut that I was able to attend, and interviewing a lot of different people doing a lot of different stuff.
That's amazing.
It was very cool.
I mean, KFUG, you'd be lucky to get sent to Oric.
Well, yeah, but KFUG doesn't have the budget that KVMR had. I mean, so there's that. But, KVMR's probably been in existence 50 years now, maybe?
It was
40.
It's one of those flagship, like KPFA, like KHSU, one of those flagship community radio stations. Yeah.
Right, yeah. So, but I mean, still, I've had complete freedom here to cover anything and everything that, we wanted to cover.
How'd you get into broadcasting?
So it's a good question. Well, it's funny. I have to kind of go way back to when I was a kid for a minute, just to sort of set the stage, right? Because it's kind of like. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I know this is your interview, but I've met broadcasters, and there are people who fall into it situationally as a job, something like that. There are people, it seems, who are born broadcasters, and I don't know if that's being silly or not, but there's like a segue gene or something.
Well, certainly born. I think born for radio. And it sounds a little pretentious, and I don't mean it like that. Because when I was a kid, right? I was super into radio. I had my little transistor radio that I would lay at night, with it, hidden under the covers, and listening to Clark Weber on WLS and Ron Riley on WCFL.
Big ass AM stations.
Oh yeah, big huge AM stations, and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world, right? And so I did that, and I was telling you that for fun I used to edit. I used to record television shows as they were playing.
The audio.
The audio, yes, yeah, and then like editing the tape with the little,
with the edit block,
block and all of that. I mean, I'm not, not necessarily say I was any good at it, but I did it, and then I wound up 1989. I wound up getting a job to run a residential drug treatment program in Nevada County, and they had KVMR community radio station, and so I went there and applied to be a programmer, to be a volunteer programmer, and I became one. I did a couple of different music shows, primarily there. I was telling you that the first show I did, my first audition, right? I auditioned for a midnight to 4 slot or something like that, and I did my tape and recorded it on the cassettes and all of that stuff, and they had a program committee, and the program committee reviewed my show, and I went to meet with them, and they said, "It's a great show, Mike. It's just great, I said, "But we're not giving you the time slot." And I go, "Well, what do you mean you're not giving me the time slot?" "This is because you can't start a show off with 5 fuck songs in a row."
So says the committee.
So says the committee, right? But then, of course, I kept at it, and I eventually got a show, and I wound up doing a couple of different ones, and so I was doing a morning show. It was music. It was 6 to 9, I guess, or was it 4 to 7? I guess it was 4 to 7. And then at some point, in fact, the program director at the time asked me if I wanted to do an interview with somebody. Wanted to know if I wanted to do an interview with Adrian Ballou.
Oh, wow.
And I said, yeah, I would love that. I know Adrian Ballou's music and all of that. And then I was doing a phoner, obviously, with Adrian Ballou. And he's talking about this and that. And I said, can we talk a little bit about your stint with King Crimson? And he goes, oh, you know about that? And I go, yes, I do. And so it went really well. And then I did a few more kind of entertainment-based interviews, and then I started moving in more into social and political types of things. So I was doing basically 2 hours of music and then 1 hour of kind of morning news and public affairs. And that sort of set the stage for me moving into getting a 2-hour noon slot where I did public affairs and live call-ins and things like that. Wow. And then eventually that sort of parlayed itself into working with the news department, right, and then becoming the news director.
So 99 is when you do all of this, right? Or when you step into KVMR?
Few years earlier than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're talking about, in your 40s?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what happened? I mean, to just kind of like walk in off the street. I'm wondering how you got to that point. Like, what was it about your earlier life that just let it, you finally, like in your 40s, you walk into a radio station, and then, in the next 10, 15 years, you end up running an award-winning news department. Well,
part of the thing is that, so when I was a kid, I started getting in a lot of trouble. I was always in some sort of trouble, and most of the time, truthfully, I really didn't understand why. And I think it was just I was grading up against society and authority and all of that. I was telling you that when I was at a thing at the Vets Hall above the bar where my dad worked, and they had a magician, and the magician's doing his tricks. And I must have been like 6, you know what I mean? And I'm going, well, it's right in that hand over there, you know what I mean? I do, really, you know what I mean?
Get away, kid.
Yeah. And there was a lot of that. It was really like, will somebody please get this smart-ass kid out of here, But I was always getting in trouble, and...
Now, you tell stories when we're on the radio just about your wayward youth in Chicago, and... it's not just, truancy and stuff. It was some serious trouble you got into.
Well, yeah. I eventually wound up being put in the Illinois Youth Commission, which is kind of like the California Youth Commission. And I think I was probably total, I was in there, I want to say 4 years total.
Wow. Okay.
Well, part of it is that So anyway, just to kind of go back, if it's okay, right?
Sure.
Because part of the thing is really, when I was looking at all of this, it reminded me that I was probably 8. And a friend of mine, Paul, a good friend of mine, and we were cutting school. And the cops got us, right? And then what they did is they paid us $5 each to star in a movie. And we starred in this movie, and it actually got shown in schools, right? Because we were like 2 JDs. We were with these other little kids, and the other kids, they went to go, back to being like normal, law-abiding kids. And then we went like breaking into cars and shoplifting things and all of that, So anyway, that's the kind of crew that I ran with.
Wait, hold on. So you landed this movie role?
Yes, we were. Yes, yeah, because we were like under the L tracks in Chicago, and they came, and somehow or another, I don't remember exactly how it happened, but pretty much like that. And they just basically said, you want to make $5? Yes, sure, we want to make $5. I was making $5, a couple of 3 different times, running packages up to hookers from mobsters in cars and things like that. It sounds way more dramatic than it was.
Yeah,
it was just like you're out in the neighborhood, a couple of gangsters pull up and go, "Hey kid, you want to make $5? Yeah, what I got to do? He said, take this up to that apartment up there. Okay, wow. I can do that. Yeah. So anyway, so I was always in trouble. And then it just really got to this point where it just got so out of control that I was locked up. And nobody knew what to do with me because I was already a drug addict. Mm-hmm. I was blackout drinking from the time I was maybe 10, maybe 11.
Whoa.
And so it wasn't that I was a criminal. I wasn't really a criminal. I was just an alcoholic and a drug addict and, a kid who just didn't have much in the way of coping skills, But then I wound up, my dad had disappeared and my mother, I guess she just didn't know what to do. And so the time came when I thought I was going home. I'd been locked up already for a year. Mm-hmm. And then she just told the judge she couldn't deal with me. And that was it. I was off to the Illinois Youth Commission,
Wow.
So all of that is to say that I spent most of my youth and young adulthood and into my early 30s basically being, a drinking alcoholic and a hardcore, IV drug user and all of that stuff. So I didn't even really start getting my shit together in any meaningful way until, 32, 33, something like that. But I had accumulated a lot of experiences that in some ways were useful to me once I knew what to do with them.
How'd you get out of that scene?
It was a process.
Yeah,
The sort of end stage was I was homeless in San Francisco. I was down there around the bus station and Howard Street and all of that, and drinking cheap wine and hanging out by the dumpster across from the bus station. I was almost killed. I remember getting in a fight with somebody, and then I came to in a park right by the Ozanam Center on 8th and Howard. Mm-hmm. And I, just woke up, and kind of went, oh my God, really drunk, or something. And I stumbled over to the Ozanam Center, and they opened the door, and the last thing I remember was somebody saying, oh my God.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I guess I had been beaten with some sort of 2x4 or baseball bat or something. Had a piece of wood going through my jaw.
Oh my God.
And so anyway, so I they put me in the hospital, SF General, I think. Mm-hmm. And I got out after a few days. And then, I decided I had to drink one more time after that. I wound up in North Shore Lake Tahoe, coming out of a blackout, and then I wound up in a really sleazy detox program in Sacramento. Front Street was the name of it. It was run by Volunteers of America. And I met somebody there. They helped me get into a program, Altua Village, which is, I can't think of the name of the town right now, south of Sacramento, not quite as far as Lodi. And then I was there and got sober and stayed sober, met a 12-step guy who helped me out a lot. And then at that time, the state of California, they had the California Department of Rehabilitation. Mm-hmm. And so they would send you to learn how to be a drug counselor.
Oh, wow.
And so that's what I did. And I knew I would be good at it. And I was. Mm-hmm. I was good at it. And so I did that. And then I wound up working at Altua, then running a program in Sacramento, then running the program in Nevada City. Did that for 10 years there. And then, of course, KVMR was there. And then after, 15 plus years of running residential drug rehabs and dual diagnosis facilities, in the final year, a whole bunch of people who had gone through the program died. One woman was murdered. And then my really, really good friend, Richard Knight, who worked for me, fantastic person, fantastic counselor. He got hepatitis C, I think, when he was a heroin addict in San Francisco, and then he died that year, and it was just too much for me. I just had enough, and so I just and I know I've said this to you before. I think I have. I was doing counseling sessions with people. And, like afterwards they would go, "Oh, Mike, thank you so much. You did all this great stuff to help me." I wasn't even there.
You were just
I had gotten so good that I could just fake it so well. Yeah. And then that's when I realized, I go, I have to leave this because these people deserve more than this. Yeah. And then that's kind of when I moved, full time into radio.
Wow, okay, yeah. Okay. So it's two things. It's weird how I'm just gonna get drunk one last time. How so often it seems I've heard that story so often.
Oh yeah.
It leads to some epic thing that just like kind of forces the issue and kind of pushes you down to bottom. Finally,
right. Oh right? Yeah. Well, I had. See, it's one of those things, and I can tell you 1,000 stories of people who had it worse than me.
Sure.
More traumatic, more tragedy, more whatever. But at the same time, I kind of lived at bottom most of my life, you know what I mean? Because like everybody I knew was like me. I mean, all of their parents were like alcoholics and mentally ill, and and so we all sort of, because likes people who are like kind of come together, you know what I mean? And so so that kind of life was normal. Shooting drugs every day, just all of that kind of stuff was normal. I remember after I'd been clean for a while, I had applied for a job with the Veterans Home in Yountville, okay? And to work at their alcohol and drug program. And so I went there and I was offered the job. I didn't take it, and there's a reason for that. But I decided I'd go to a meeting while I was there, right? And an AA meeting, and so I did. And the person who was doing the speaking, they're talking about how they were in Germany and they were, drinking in the beer stubes and all of that stuff. And finally somebody says, "Oh, well, let's hear from the out of towner," right? You know what I mean? And I don't know why I said it, but I did say it. I said, I got to tell you, man, like if I was in Germany drinking at the beer stubes and stuff, I'd have still been drinking, because like when I was I was running a group one time, a young man says to me, he just got all irate. He goes, "You had your 20 years of partying." And he says, "Now you're trying to deny me mine." I said, "Young brother, if it was party, I'd go out there with you right now."
Right.
It was not party. It was ball busting work. But anyway, the reason I didn't take the job at Yountville was because the people who were in the program were all super elderly, except for one young guy who was horribly disabled. I mean, just horribly disabled. And I said to him, they offered me the job, and I said, I just don't know what am I going to say?
Yeah.
you know, like you're 90 years old. Everybody you've ever loved is dead. You know what I mean? You're
don't
never,
drink.
you know, don't get any comfort, you know,
Right.
or you're like you're a 35-year-old, military veteran, you know what I mean, who's, completely paralyzed from the neck down, and you have to get sober so you can have a life, I just couldn't do it, and I just couldn't do it. It just seemed to be, it would be just too hypocritical.
Yeah, that would be wow.
Yeah.
Wow. How did you end up here then with us?
Well, I moved out of radio in about 2008. I was offered somebody who had been a county supervisor in Nevada County opened a small environmental organization and asked me if I wanted to be a community organizer for them. And it was a substantial increase in pay. And I had kind of gotten to the point, it was a little bit like when I was running a drug program. I had done a lot of reporting, but I wanted to get more like actually involved as compared to telling other people's stories, right? And so I took the job, and my job was to go around and do public education about the problems with legacy mines throughout the Sierra foothills and all the various toxins.
It's a big deal up
there.
It's
a super big deal.
It's one big tailing up there, right?
Yes, it is, yes. And it's actually a really, really big deal. And so I went around the Sierras doing presentations and writing op-eds and, recruiting medical people and community people and all of that to try and address these positions. I got laid off from there and when the big recession hit. That's when I lost my home too. I got wound up getting foreclosed on. Had a hell of a time getting a job. Finally got a job with a small organization in La Grande, Oregon. And it was very, very similar to True North. And so I went to work there. From there, I got hired on by the Sierra Club. And, I take that back. No, I got hired on by, I can't think of the name of it now, an organization in Lake Tahoe. And I can't think of the name of it right now, Sierra Nevada Alliance.
Okay.
And to run their regional AmeriCorps program.
Oh, wow, right.
Yeah, and that was cool. I mean, it's one of the things that really gave me and gives me a lot of faith in young people, because you get all this stuff, young people, blah, 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 blah. I've met a lot of young people, they're brilliant.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I wish I was a quarter as smart as they are and dedicated and all of that. And then from there, I went to work for the Sierra Club, and my gig there was to get a new national marine sanctuary nominated between Santa Barbara and Monterey.
Oh, you did that? Didn't that happen?
But we got it into the process, and Obama was supposed to do it on his way out the door, and he didn't do it. He didn't do it. But yeah, so I wound up working with Chumash people down there, and. Man, I had to get up to speed on all of that, oceanography and ocean biology and all of that, so I could talk to some of these folks. And it was kind of like same thing with news, right? You don't have to be an expert on the subject. You just have to know enough to ask good questions, right? And not sound stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I did that with them, and eventually there was a layoff there. I wound up getting hired by an organization in Reno, which is part of the same network as True North. I was the executive director for that organization, and got to do some cool stuff with organizing tenants around gentrification and other things like that. Homelessness, did a lot of work on homelessness. But I was the ED, and as you know, being an ED, especially when you're being the ED in something that you actually like doing, it's like, well, wait a minute, I didn't get into
It takes all the fun
right,
out.
yeah, it takes all the fun out of it, right? Because it's like you're doing the taxes and the budgets and, the grant reporting and all of that stuff. And all of that's necessary, but it's like, well, but that's not why I got in to do this. And then I wound up getting offered the job with True North here in Del Norte, and I said, sure. And so I came and worked for them.
And I'm so glad that happened. And then I think we met. Was it the YTA where we met initially? I'm trying to remember. Just today we were talking about this on the air, and I was trying to remember the first time I met you, and I can't.
I think it might have been because I think I got invited there to be part of some sort of a small panel,
right,
in a class that you were doing.
Okay.
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
I know that happened, and I know it was a class that was involved with the media thing. But
was I doing it, or was somebody else doing it, and I was just there, kind of in the same function you were?
I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't
it could,
remember.
yeah, and it could have been. It could have actually been exactly that.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Man. So, so you've been doing the news here. We're going on a year of doing the news at KFUG and doing Del Norte. A couple of big higher questions I have before specific things. But what does it take to do community news? And I don't mean going to college and getting your degree and hopefully getting a job at the network and all of that dream, which has gone out the window now anyway.
Right.
What does it actually take to do community news well?
Well, I think the thing is you have to be curious. That's the first part. I mean, a lot of it is craft, right? You know, because I mean, it's like, you know, you can learn how to edit, you can learn how to do all of that stuff, but you have to be curious, and you have to be willing to. You have to be curious. You have to give a shit. You have to actually. At least for me, I have to have some sort of hope that if I can, as accurately as possible, tell people what's going on in their community, that they'll be able to use that information to do something to improve their lives and the lives of the people they care about. I guess for me, it's, you know, you have to believe that public officials have to be held accountable, and you know, it's a little bit of a mission on some level. And you just have to be willing to get out there and just say, you know what, I'm going to ask the question, you know, because you can learn all the tech stuff, you know, where do you hold a mic? How do you do that? How do you make sure your sound levels are good? You know, you can train a monkey to do that, you know what I mean? But it's like, you know, yeah, I'm going to go up there and I'm going to ask the question, and they're not going to like it, you know what I mean? Okay, you know, I don't have to be a jerk, you know, but at the same time, it's like, well, but that's not the question I asked you. I asked you this.
Yeah,
you didn't answer it.
Again,
and I'm going to ask you again. You know, yeah, exactly. You know, so I don't know. I just think, I think it's. Once again, I'm not trying to sound pretentious or anything. You know, I think it's just you have to have some personal traits, and if you have those personal traits, then you can do it. If you don't have those personal traits, you could maybe still do it. But it's a lot harder, I think.
And yeah, and I think that the content that then is generated, the news, whether it's news, affairs, feature sort of things, suffers because there's no real passion involved in it.
Yeah, I think so too. And I'm a big believer in point of view journalism. I have no problem with point of view journalism, you know, advocacy journalism, activism journalism. I think you just have to be transparent about it. You know, it's like, yes, I have an opinion. I have a position on this, and I'm not going to hide it, and I'm not going to try to like stealth it in there. You know, it's like, yes, this is what I think about it, you know, and then make your own decision whether, you know, full of shit or not.
So, speaking of full of shit, yes.
Just got to change the battery. Audio still sounds good.
All right.
Okay.
Everybody rolling?
Rolling.
Okay.
Rolling.
So we'll do this again. That's going to fuck us up. That one off camera will fuck us up. Okay. No. We got it once.
Shooting from the lip.
Yeah, right.
The video edition.
This is it. This is our vlog version.
Yes.
All right. I think before the cut, we were talking about, I don't know if it was dysfunction or getting your shit together or whatever, but it just made, in my mind, it sounded like a perfect segue into, after nearly a year of local news coverage of Del Norte, and before that, community organizing in Del Norte. What are your takeaways? What have you learned about this little corner of California that maybe you didn't know before, or it might not even seem apparent when you look at it now, but you know?
Yeah, well, it's a really good question, and I think, you know, I mean, I sort of feel the need to say, you know, this is whatever I'm going to say. That's just my
exactly
my view. I don't pretend to, but there's a couple of things. I think one of the things is that I think there's a deep sense of hopelessness in this community, and I think that there's a lot of reasons for that. Of course, we have the whole multi-generational scar of the people who lived here and who were murdered and who had everything taken from them. And then, you have the deep generational scar, maybe less apparent and maybe less apparent even to them, that exists within the people who did that murdering and stealing and all of that. It's an incredibly economically depressed community. It's an incredibly isolated community. And I think all of that comes together to create and this isn't for everybody, obviously. But just a kind of a sense of low expectations, and not a lot of way out.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things when I was working with True North. That sort of became my mantra within the organization, is that's the core, that's the key, that's the thing that we have to try to find a way to help people get out of. And I guess because...
What, the hopelessness?
Yeah, because I think the hopelessness creates this sense of resignation, you know what I mean? And it's not apathy. It may present as apathy, but it's not really apathy. And so then what happens is you can see it, and it's not to say it's only in this community, obviously. I think it's something that happens in, and now I'm just kind of riffing off the top of my head here, but I think it happens in like really super depressed urban areas, mm-hmm. and like really super depressed rural areas. Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of commonality there. But you can see it. Basically you have a government and a governmental system and economic system that's run by, a small group of elites. Del Norte elites. And which is maybe, I'm sorry. Well,
you had to qualify it
I did. And part of the thing is, I don't like, okay, I don't mean to talk bad about the deceased, right? And I genuinely mean that. But it's like when I first met Bob Berkowitz, right? Mm-hmm. And Bob's just trying to and he's just thinking he's so slick, and I'm, dude, I've dealt with real slick, I've talked to foreign ministers of Cuba and things like that. Mm-hmm. You may be slick, but you're like Del Norte Podunk slick, and you're way more obvious and transparent than you think you are. And anyway, but so and nobody, very few people meaningfully try to change any of that dynamic, mm-hmm. right? And so, why is that? Lots of people are dissatisfied. Most of the people in this community are not well represented. I think, very often, while the corruption may be small scale in the grand scheme of things, it's completely obvious, the conflicts of interest and all of that. But who shows up? It's the same 3 or 4 people all the time, and 75% of them, you mean probably could have very well had a diagnosable illness and been in a program that I ran.
You mean who shows up? The same you mean to the meetings, to the public discourse,
yeah, right. So when I first got here, one of the things that I realized was that it was 100 vote difference could get you on the board of supervisors. Yeah. Less for the city council. Mm-hmm. And so it's like I was telling people, going, you know, like, why don't you run some candidates, you know?
Yeah, like get involved. You have a chance.
Yeah,
here.
you can actually do something here, you know, because the margin of victory is so small.
You don't need a PAC. You don't need
right. You don't. All, you know, and you know, was even like making it. But I don't pretend to be some great political strategist. But it's this part of it isn't rocket science, you know, and it's just like, you know. Who runs? Nobody. You know, who shows up? Nobody. You know, I mean, and I really believe that comes out of that deep sense of hopelessness and alienation. And what's the point? You know, and you know, the only thing that I can hope to do somehow or another is to, like, you know, keep my head down and, you know, get through, you know, or get out or whatever. And I find that really, really sad.
Is there a cure for that?
Yes, I do think there's a cure. And the analogy that I have may not be the best one, but it's the only one I can think of at the moment. So when I was still working in the drug treatment field, I saw a film, and it was about an indigenous tribe in Canada, I believe. And at one point, they had a 100% alcoholism rate.
Oh my God!
100%. And so there's like film of, like, you know, the surrounding townspeople, like, driving up to the edge of the res, selling liquor out of the trunks of their cars and out of the backs of their station wagons. And I mean, and there's kids, little kids, you know, drunk, stumbling around and all of this stuff. And then so what happened is one person, I think it was a guy, and he got sober, right? And then his wife got sober, and he relapsed, but she stayed sober. And because of that spark, by the time it was all said and done, they had like a 96% sobriety rate.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, just that one seed.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you know what I mean. And I think it just takes that. It takes that one spark, and then having it be in the right person or people that they can help spread it, you know, and help people to understand that they have rights are a weird word, but that they can expect more. They can demand that these people who act as their, you know, lords and masters actually work for them. You know, I mean, you know, I'm sorry, I'm on a rant now. You know what I mean? But no, you know, like the thing with the jail, that's disgusting. You know, and what they did, and the fact that it's what's been going on in this county sheriff's department. It's been going on for years.
A generation.
Yeah, you know, and the fact that it all comes out. And like all the elected leaders, you know, I see nothing, I hear nothing, I say nothing, and I'm just going to pretend like nothing's happened. And then I'm going to start gaslighting, you know, the community. Yeah. Oh, the brave men and women, you know, and it's just like, you know, excuse me, but fuck you. But they get away with it. They're getting away with it. You know, they've gotten away with it.
Oh yeah. And I personally have gotten personal assurances.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's on our radar.
The new sheriff is chipping away.
Yeah, he's chipping away. Right. Yeah. You know.
It seemed like politicians. Again, I'll try not to join in on your rant. This feels a lot like the morning show, so that's why I keep talking.
No, please.
It's like they don't understand that addressing it publicly, even if you don't have the answer.
Right.
It will do a little something to alleviate some of that sense of hopelessness.
Right. Well, it's one of the things that I when I was still working with True North, I was, you know, telling the superintendent of schools, you know, going, just be honest with the people of the community, you know, and you know, share with them the struggles that you're having and what you're trying to accomplish. Because, you know, there's this like mentality, well, if they know, they'll get mad. They're already mad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're already mad. But if you just would like be transparent and make a genuine effort to say, you know, yeah, we're gonna try. People are incredibly forgiving.
Well, you talk about hopelessness, and to me, and you were saying that doesn't feel like the right word for it. I think what it is, it's people don't feel valued. They don't feel valuable. They don't feel like they matter to people.
Right.
And even if, like with the jail, if you had the supervisors of the city somebody come out and say, yeah, this sucks, we're going to try to get to the bottom of it, even acknowledging it on that level acknowledges the value of the people you're addressing.
Yes, absolutely.
You're important enough for me to say something about this.
Right. Well, and it's interesting because, like, so, I mean, obviously the abuse, and I have experienced it personally, not here, but I've experienced it personally, the abuse that goes on in incarcerated settings, okay? So I know what happens in these places. I've seen it, I've experienced it. And I remember seeing a thing one time, a paper, very well-written paper, about how society had to be really cognizant about what it did and didn't do for the people who were incarcerated within our penal system, because the vast majority of those people will someday get released, okay? And they will bring with them whatever was done to them and whatever was not done for them back out in the into the communities that they are returned to. That is a objective fact, right? Who wrote that paper? Pat Buchanan in 1962.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Pat Buchanan wrote that in 1962.
Wow, that's nuts.
Right. You know, yeah. And you know, like, yeah. And it just, so much of it seems, yeah, the message is here is that there's a small group of people in this community who count, who are important, and who are worth listening to, and worth making an effort to meet their needs. And basically, you know, more or less everyone else is on their own. Yeah. You know, and that's hard. Yeah. It's a hard thing to deal with.
So, wow, like about 36 hours from now, you'll be getting in the E-van,
yes,
the E-van, and heading off to an entirely new chapter, an incredible chapter. Do you want to address any of that and what Zuzka has done for you?
Sure. I will do it, because it's just
it's amazing.
It's nuts. I mean, it really is amazing. So first off, let me say that Zuzka Sabata, who is a really talented artist, playwright, actor, all of those things. I've known her for many years now. I met her, I interviewed her. She was with an organization called Clowns Without Borders.
That's great.
Yeah, like Doctors Without Borders, only Clowns Without Borders. I wonder what it is
in French.
I don't know, you know what I mean? You know, Le Tonapont. That's a very inside reference.
Which reminds me, I have pictures my mom sent me from Tonapont.
Oh, okay.
As they pass
by the clown hotel, yeah. I'll be going, I'll probably be through there some Friday or Saturday, I guess, you know. But, yeah, you know, so and that's where I met Zuzka. And so I've known Zuzka for a long time. And then she wound up here, I wound up here. And so, so around my birthday, around February, she called me. And she goes, hey, how's it going? You know, yeah, great, you know, and blah, 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 and then, you know, da-da-da-da-da, and all that stuff. And more or less, she goes, you know, like birthday bonus. And I go, what? You know, and she goes, I'd like to buy you a house.
What?
You know, that's what I said. Yeah. And it turns out that she came into some money and, you know, wanted me to have an actual house that I could, live in, like during my old age and dotage and, and all of that. And I just went, what? Well, yeah. Well, and the thing is I mean, Zuzka, she's a great person. Mm-hmm. She's a kind person. She's not the kind of person who would ever say anything like that without the intention to actually do it.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, I'm going, this is insane. This can't happen. How can this happen?
I remember it took you a few days to kind of get your head around the
right.
thing. Yeah.
And so now it has. Mm-hmm. And actually, we've bought a place, closing on it next Tuesday, a week from today.
Wow.
In Sierra Vista, Arizona.
Sierra Vista, which is down on the border, southwest of Tucson, right? Southeast of Tucson.
Yeah. Kind of in that whole Tombstone, Bisbee, Cochise County.
Purchase, kids.
The Gadsden Purchase, yeah. And so I'll be leaving here Thursday morning, and I'm gonna take a few days to drive there, and then I'll be living there.
Yeah.
It's a really nice area, and one of the really cool things, literally, is like I think it's like the highs right now, like I don't know, 85. Something like that.
That's something for right along the Mexican border.
Right, yeah. Well, and the thing is, like Phoenix the other day, it was 115, and Sierra Vista was 93.
Because it's up high.
Yeah, right. Beautiful. Yeah, and it's a very, the environment surrounding it is very interesting. Mm-hmm. It's an interesting community for me to end up in, because apparently, I mean, they have this. I think I'm pronouncing it right. Fort Huachuca. Which I guess is sort of the center of like the military intelligence complex in the U.S. It sounds like, I mean, if it's not literally the center, I mean, it's not like CIA land.
Sure.
But it's like the military defense intelligence stuff.
Like DIA land.
Yeah, right. And then like border Patrol.
They already know you're coming.
Yeah, they probably already do. I actually did a FOIA request with the FBI.
Really?
To see if I had a file.
That's still laying around somewhere.
Yeah, they said I didn't, but I only asked for like the most cursory, free thing. Because see, part of the thing, right? So when I was doing this thing, I was going to all these prisons, right? Like I was at the ADX, the high security prison.
The big one,
interviewing Matulu Shakur, Waynesburg Death Row, interviewing Mumia Abu Jamal. Mm-hmm. Dublin, California, at the Women's Federal Facility there with Marilyn Buck and Laura Whitehorn and people like that. And so it wasn't long after that some young guy showed up and wanted to volunteer with me, right?
With you specifically?
Yes, this is a true story.
So he shows up at KVMR, I want to work with Mike.
Wanted to volunteer. Cool, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so you know what I mean? He's like volunteering, right? And then like I was doing, because I guess I was filling in for somebody, or maybe I was still doing a late night music show too, you know what I mean? So homeboy shows up, right, with these two really, really young looking girls, right? I mean, really young. And I'm going, and then something just didn't seem right, And so like I just started getting suspicious, And then at some point, I like actually went to where he said he lived, and there was something shaky about that. And then I was at a protest at the state capitol, and he was there, and he looked like undercover cop.
Oh my God!
He did. You know what I mean?
Think they were trying to.
And then after I saw him there, I do.
Yeah,
I actually do. And then after that, he disappeared.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that was the last time I saw him.
So I'm bringing the underage girls here. Something unfortunate's going to be documented, and your career's going to be over, and no more FOIA requests from you. That kind of
thing? Well, see, the other thing is that, and I didn't say this, but when I was in Beirut, I met.
Oh God, you've got to be all kinds of lists for that too.
Well, I met with the Southern military commander of Hezbollah.
Oh Jesus, you're a terrorist.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well. So, but the thing was, right when I was there, I think it was the Beirut Star. So, like, I'm there interviewing Sheikh Nabil Kaouk, who is and then I think now he might have gotten killed. But he made his way up further into the Hezbollah organization after I was gone. So I'm there interviewing the sheikh, right? And all of a sudden, the entire Beirut media shows up, right? Like, you know, TV, all of it, you know what I mean? And they're like interviewing me, interviewing him.
Oh, wow.
Because, like, the thing was, right, these people didn't understand that I was, like, with this small little radio station.
They thought you were, like,
they
from
thought
America
They
TV?
did. So they're going, and so do you think that the sheikh is a terrorist? And then I go, well, I've only known him for 10 minutes. You know what I mean? And they're going, do you think you'll get in trouble with your government? And I'm going, you know, truth of the matter, and this is so American white privilege shit that I said. You know, it's like, I go, look, I don't care what my government thinks, and I don't care what your government thinks. You know what I mean? I'm sitting there going, you know, I look back at that now and how cringe a statement that was.
Why? Why is that cringe?
Well, because, like, okay. So I'm in Syria, right? Okay, and we got a guy. He's taking us around. And it turns out he was a bit of a handler, right?
Sure.
And I'm jamming him, you know, because he's like taking me to all this cultural bullshit and all this stuff. I'm going, this is not what I want. I want to do this. I want to talk to real people. I want to do these things. You know what I mean? And then finally, like one day, he just had a nervous breakdown. You know what I mean? And he was terrified. You know what I mean? Because
you were going to get him in trouble?
Got to get him killed.
Wow, yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like I thought I had, you know, and probably did have some protection, you know what I mean, as an American.
As a journalist.
As a journalist,
Sure.
you know what I mean? That he didn't have, you know? So like, so the other thing, I was up, oh God, what was his name? I can't think of his name right now. But he's the head of the Druze Muslims, right, in Lebanon. And like, so I went to his house, right, which is this gigantic mansion. I know you haven't seen The Godfather, but it's just like The Godfather, right? No, I swear to God. Once a month, all the young Druze men come to this guy's house, and I can't think of his name right now, and basically kiss the ring, and he gives them jobs and all of this stuff. And so I'm interviewing him, right? And I'm going, you know, and he's going, oh, yes, the corruption and all of that stuff. And I said, well, sir, you know, one of the things is that a lot of times when people are talking about corruption in Lebanon, they say you're part of it, you know? And he goes, I'll show you my tax returns. You know,
Wow.
You know, like he's talking to me like I'm Mike Wallace or something. You know what I mean? You know, and I'm going, you know, you just, you know.
What are you going to look at a bunch of tax returns from, you know, Lebanese tax returns
Right,
in
yeah,
Arabic?
yeah,
Well, these appear to be in order.
Yes, yeah, clearly. Well, what is this? You know, what is that Hamza there? That looks like a misplaced glottal stop to me. You know, but yeah, you know, I mean, yeah. So just, you know, all this kind of stuff, you know. But so yeah, but then I got, you know, and this wasn't that long after all the war on terror and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I come, you know, like I'm bopping back into like the airport in Houston. I walk right through. Nobody bothers me. I mean, they're like pulling grandmas over in wheelchairs and stuff and searching them, and I just like walk right through. And I'm literally on the front page of the Beirut newspaper with the terrorist. You know what I mean?
So that's the white privilege side.
That's
nobody's going to look closely at me because I'm a white guy.
Right.
And yeah, okay.
Right, yeah.
All right. That's okay. So. I guess before we wrap up, a couple of things. You're going down to Sierra Vista, which is just beautiful. Lisa and I plan to come and visit you there.
Good.
I want to see what that's like.
I'm really glad to hear that.
You've got an online radio station that you've put together.
I have, yes.
Continue on.
Yes.
And you've also you've made contact with close by in Bisbee, Arizona, the
community radio station there,
as
as well. So they said once I get settled, let's have a meet and have a chat about what can happen.
Right on. That's right. And what about for people here locally who want? Now I'm sure we'll share this on KFUG, of course. What is your online radio station going to be called?
It's SV1, Sierra Vista 1.
Okay.
You know, and then the idea would be to, you know, kind of do it mostly automated, but with, you know, some live programming interjected, and then hopefully, you know, to get enough local underwriting to kind of cover the bills. You know what I mean? But I mean, I'm not looking at it as trying to like build up some big business or anything.
Yeah,
but just
you're natural with this.
And just, you know, there isn't. a ton of other radio there. I mean, there is the community radio station, and there's some NPR, but you know, I'm not all that big on NPR anymore. You know, and then just a lot of kind of, you know, commercial stuff. So I'm hoping it could be a, you know, a welcome addition to the community. Mm-hmm. I hope so.
Right on. Well, we're going to figure out how to get some of your content and show and things like that. Keep it on KFUG, because I know local listeners here are going to miss you. You actually, of all the KFUG DJs, seem to have the most interaction online with listeners and people calling you up and telling you, you know, that we enjoy your show and the music you play. It hasn't always been my cup of music, but, you know, I'm not a prog rock guy, so
right.
That's you know, but we do agree on Led Zeppelin.
Yeah,
so,
well, and I'm really so glad that you came around on Sticky Fingers. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Is there anything that you'd like to say to your listeners, to the community, to folks out there that I didn't get around to asking?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, I think in the end it all winds up to being, you know, as a really heartfelt thank you. You know, I mean, you and Lisa and KFUG have been great to me. I've really enjoyed it, as well as other people. You know, JD's here, Persephone, and you know, and the opportunity to, you know, do some programming and hopefully try to, you know, play some music that people aren't hearing other places. Mm-hmm. And I think I can guarantee that for the most part.
Yep.
You know, and then of course the opportunity to do the news, that was, you know, it was a really great thing. And there are people here, I mean, a number of people, and I've tried to thank most of them personally, you know, that I really care about. And that's sort of the mixed feelings part of all of this, because on the one hand, it's like new chapter, offer I can't refuse. And then at the same time, there's people I really care about, and you know, and it's like I'm going to miss all of you, you know. So the main thing is thank you, more than anything else.
Thank you very much. You not only for what you've done for KFUG and how you've grown it, but also for being one of the best friends I've ever had.
I appreciate
really
that.
Look forward to every morning show, to coming in here on Sundays when we sit here with Lynn and do Health Matters and drink coffee and set up the rest of the day. I have enjoyed every minute of that.
Me too. Thank you.
And my biggest regret is that being my own neurotic shut-in up there in the house, that I haven't had you over more often for dinner and such like that. And I'm regretting that now. But I'm nothing but happy for you and the chapter that's opening up for you. And thank you. Thanks for being here.
I appreciate that. Well, you know, I mean, as far as the neurotic shut-in part, I mean, I told you I had a person say to me, "Oh, you're such an extrovert. You know, how do you come to that conclusion?" Well, you're on the radio and you're doing all that. And I said, and you realize I'm doing this all from a little box that I can lock the door from the inside. I control it all. You know. You know, so I'm nowhere near the extrovert that you think I am.
I know. I knew you'd understand.
Yes, absolutely.
So, Mike, thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
For everything. We're doing everything we can to keep the great stuff that you've brought to KFUG rolling and to keep this community involved and hopefully address some of the hopelessness all around.
Yeah. I think that's just so important, you know, because this community deserves a lot more than it's getting, you know, and I don't mean, you know, just the people of this community deserve a lot more than they're getting, and hopefully they'll come to realize that, you know, and I'll have an online pitchfork and torches store.